Hello and welcome everyone to the last episode of this season of Tawhid and the Spirituality of the Three Principles webinar series. And today's episode is with our amazing guest, Dr. Dicken Bettinger, which I'm really excited to hear him speak. And the topic is the purity of the principles as shared by Sydney Banks and its message of hope to the world. And what a beautiful topic. What an amazing topic to end this season with. And what a special guest that we have with us today to share with us what he's been seeing and his wisdom about this. And I'm sure this is gonna be great. So really good to have you here, Dicken. I mean, like in the last season we had you 3 times, so I think you're the most person who's been with us in the show. So I really thank you for accepting our invites and always coming in and sharing with us. And I mean, you don't need introduction, but I'll go for the people who doesn't know about you. Well, briefly. I mean, Dr. Dicken Bettinger had his PhD in psychology. I mean, I don't have the thing in front of me, so I'll just go freestyle.
That's good.
Yeah, so I think I have it somewhere here because
just ad-lib it, Omar.
It doesn't.
It's way better when it's it sounds so dry when you read it from a piece of paper.
Yeah. I'll just go with the flow. I just want to remember the date you met Sydney Banks, but I just remember this is in 1986. This is the first time you met Sydney Banks, and you've been mentored by him, and since then you've had a huge realization into like how we experience life, and this was shown to you in your own experience of life with your with your wife and in your work. You were a clinical psychologist, and you've been dedicated since to share this understanding and to share what you've been seeing throughout your journey. You're the co-author of Coming Home. Is that the title, Dicken?
Yes,
Coming
it
Home.
is.
Well, I have a good memory, see?
Yeah, you do. Very good.
I mean, I love that book. Coming Home, and you are the founder of Three Principles Mentoring since 2012. You've done a lot of work and training with the with the Prensky's and Associates, you've just been a role model to to us as people who seek and want to listen to truth, and I thank you for that, Dicken. So I'm really excited to to listen to you and explore this topic with you and Harry and James and everyone else. And over to Harry. By the way, before I give it over to Harry, this is Harry's last show, so I'll be taking control. So Harry asked me before we put the live on, like if I could come up next year and do something. And I told him, well, I will be running the show now. I'll be thinking about it. But Harry, you're always welcome. I mean, this 3 years has been exceptional to me and to Harry as well. From what he told me, it has opened many doors. It has opened our eyes to truth, and it has helped many people as well. And so I just want to thank you, Harry. I want to start with this. I want to thank you for what you did to this webinar series. It's been just amazing to be working alongside you, and I know that you want to create more and do more, and I respect that, and I encourage you, and I just love what you're doing now. You're working with the refugee camps in Uganda and Kenya, and this is absolutely amazing. There are many people there that need to hear this and need help, and Harry is doing that, and this is something that I guess like that will if Sydney Banks was still alive with us, would be really happy to see that happening. I mean, it was one of his, vision to see a world where we are born into this understanding. Like we are born now knowing that there are germs and bacteria and we don't have to even think about it. But back in the days, people used to not clean their hands, which doesn't make sense to us right now. But in the future, I see people not making themselves suffer more than they should, and living peacefully. A world with less wars, with less hunger, with less greed, with less hatred and more joy. That's what I'm seeing, and that's what you're doing, Harry. So I congratulate you, and thank you. So over to you now.
Okay, thanks, Omar. As I want to thank Omar. Everything in life is a spiritual event, and it happens spiritually, and it emanates through us as a human being, and sometimes we take the credit for it when it's always God's credit or Spirit's credit. And so, Dicken, what happened was I was coaching Omar, and I says, well, you'll pay me in spiritual currency. And he said, well, why don't we do a show together and attract the Muslim people? And I thought, wow, yeah. And I sort of thought that I would be the head of the show and stuff, but Omar quickly stepped up to the plate and let me know he wanted to share equally. And what developed over the 3 years is we approached the Muslim community and the non-Muslim community from a unique perspective. I always look for what's on people's minds. I'm not interested in the status quo approach to three principles. What's on the Muslims' minds was a very key point for myself. And we explored that. And through that, I ended up being the addiction manager for the addiction department back to the FITRA with Catherine Jones. And,
Yes.
and I was training all these mentors and so on. And they had this incredible feeling about God. It was just amazing, alive feeling about God. Everything was included. And somewhere in the middle of all of that action, all of that stuff happening, Mugisha contacts me just on Facebook. I happen to be on. We start writing to each other. And all of a sudden, we're like two kindred spirits joining together. And he invites me into Naka Valley to come into his teachers and his school and so on. And I had this image of what a refugee camp. All of it is not what it was. It was just so much more, so much fast. And 120,000 people, starving, suffering, etc. But tremendous faith in God. And I brought in 3 mentors from back to the FITRA, Africans from Senegal, from Uganda, and from Nigeria. And we came in as a team. And what was obvious to me was they loved the feeling of God. It was much more alive than I had ever experienced anywhere. It was a Christian God, but it was alive in them. The spirit was alive. Once you brought in thought, all they had to see was how it was connected to God. So they, in 15, 20 minutes, they were understanding the total principles from a feeling perspective, always relating it back to the spiritual. And what I've seen from that, because part of our topic is how does this truth, as spoken by Sydney Banks, spread through the world? And psychologically, the psychologists have done an amazing job, and which includes you, but you've always had also a spiritual, very strong mystical and spiritual connection, which I've always really appreciated. So sometimes your mind will go, but you go to your feeling almost every. I've really respected that, because sometimes you and I have gyrated in our thinking, but when it came to the feeling, we always found the right place
Yeah.
to be. And of course, that's the teachings of the three principles type of thing. So what I see for the future is there's going to be two movements. They're both the same movement. When Sid began talking, he talked about that the Western mind was interested in the ego, in the psychological perspective of life, and the Eastern mind was interested in mastermind. And that always was interesting to me, but I have never experienced where there's people out there in the world, they don't want to get it psychologically. They want to get it spiritually, the spiritual psychology. They need to know the psychological aspect to be balanced and to live a life of happiness and contentment. But they didn't. So what I see in Africa is it's a continent that is going to lead the three principles. It's going to take it in a direction that I think you will love rather than like. I think, and Jim will love, and Omar will love, because it's a spiritual direction, and they get it so easily, like 15 minutes, and they got the principles. And it's not me, obviously, it's them and the power. And that's what happened with Omar and I when we got together. Omar just took this energy. And I really want to thank you, Omar, because the truth is, these last 3 years, which by the way, feel like a minute, have taken me into something I needed. I needed to feel the principles. I needed to experience the principles from my perspective, not from the psychological presentation of the principles, but what I feel and how I'm connected. And as I found that there's only one partner in life, God. God's our only partner. And that's what's happening in Africa, what's happened with us. Having even Dicken here today, it's all part of a spiritual gift that life is giving us. So I really, really want to thank you, Omar, for this incredible 3 years and so on. So just to finish
My
it
pleasure,
off,
Harry.
just to finish it off, in my mind, what Sid wanted the most was to maintain the purity of the principles. That was his number one priority. He wanted it to get big. He wanted it to expand, but he wanted the purity of the principles to maintain. And what I've seen with that is when I teach the Africans and when we start to share, it's amazing how they take a look at Sid's stuff and they grab hold of it and they understand it on such a deep level that you can't help but be impressed with the purity of what Sid is expressing. So with that in mind, Dicken, thanks for coming, and we look forward to going. And by the way, everybody, please share. That's the whole idea.
Well, thank you. I really respect deeply the spirit of sharing you folks have. And what I see is as people wake up to our connection to something greater, always that leads to more love, more compassion, and more sharing. More that there's less personal thinking and ego. And whenever there's less personal thinking and ego for any person, there's more love, more understanding. So if it's less about me, then it becomes more about we're connected. I see you suffering. How can I help? What can I do? And you've been brilliant examples of that in action. Really, really beautiful. You know, I love that there's not a single person on this planet that can't wake up to this deeper spiritual dimension and discover a love that's completely unconditional, and a capacity to be selflessly in service to anyone around you that's suffering, which is all of us at times. Well, I love that the world is waking up to something much deeper that's true about humanity, because our view of humanity has often become quite dismal. So it's beautiful that people are waking up to this dimension that we keep talking about, that we call the spiritual dimension. And waking up everywhere in the world to something deeper. Why is that? Because it's true. Because it's always been here. Scientists are waking up to deeper truth that what's visible in life is just the tip of the iceberg, very tip of the iceberg. The scientists at NASA say everything that can be seen with telescopes or subatomic microscopes, everything that has form that can be seen, that's visible, everything that can be seen with instrumentation only accounts for 4% of the energy of our universe. 4%. 96%. This is just our universe. This is not the multiverses, because then we're talking infinity, but it's just a metaphor, and I love it. I love it as a metaphor. People are waking up saying, I'm more than my 4%. That's the human part of me. The being part of me is formless, invisible, spiritual. But that dimension of life, the 96%, is just not an emptiness. It's a fullness, full of, here's where the scientists and the mystics agree, and this is the only place Sid was trying to point us toward. Wake up to the 96% of life that's invisible. Why is that? Because it's full of creative potential. Everything that you see was created from that spiritual space, no exception. Literally, everything in the universe came into existence. The miracle of life is that out of nothing, everything arises. It's full of consciousness. Everything that's created, every cell in the universe has awareness, because it's made of awareness, made of pure awareness. And it's full of intelligence, full of wisdom, full of knowing. Look at this. The wisdom of the universe knows how to create and operate what's created. Okay, now, the great discovery is that all of us, who we think we are, is what's visible, our body, our thoughts, our feelings. And we walk around life as if that's the ultimate truth, and I'm different from you, and I'm separate from you, and you're your body, and I'm my body, and we're completely different people. And you think different than I do, but I like my thinking. Your thinking is wrong, so I'm right. So, and then you're going to argue with me about this? Really? Because I'm right. Just admit you're wrong. And then we have conflict, and then we have wars, and the egoic view of life ends with a very dismal ending. That when people live only in their conceptual mind of ideas and beliefs, they inevitably feel different and separate, and then compare and feel better or worse. Then you have conflict, then you have arguments, then you have wars. It's inevitable. What's missing in this equation? The 96%. So I meet this man, Sidney Banks, a welder with a 9th grade education. Insecure by his own admission, had a very difficult upbringing, argued a lot, conflicted. And one day he had a very, very rare event happen to him. Spontaneously, suddenly there was this field of buzzing white light in front of him, and he felt like he was drawn into it. And he left the 4% and his identity completely behind. Ego death. He left his ego identity behind and he went into this space. And I said, Sid, did you have a near-death experience where you go into this light and you feel this love like you've never felt before, and then you realize you're not done yet, so you come back? And he said, mine wasn't a near-death experience. I went all the way through that to the other side, to the very essence and source. And it was at that realization, I realized that all of life is the same energy dancing around in life, whether in form or formless. It's only God. I discovered the true nature of life. I discovered the secret to life. I discovered that life is one, and I discovered God. Now, when I heard this, I go, what chance do I ever have? I mean, when's the light going to appear for my clients and for me? And how is this ever going to happen? And it says, actually, it's really quite ordinary. Any one of you can get a taste of truth, of our connection to life and in oneness. But you can't do it with your intellect. No human being can use concepts to try and think your way to what lies beyond all concepts. It's impossible. No human being can think and be happy at the same time. No human being can think and feel love at the same time. I used to do that all the time. I'd be thinking about my life, and my wife would say, "You're not here." And I said, "Oh, yes, I am." Yes, I am. I can hear you. You're not listening. Yeah, no, I can hear your words, even though I was thinking constantly. I had no idea that if I'm thinking constantly, it's impossible for me to access feelings of well-being while I'm doing that, while I'm engaged with my computer. I'm not going to find love and peace and happiness and joy in my computer. You don't go to your computer for that. You go to it for really cool information that's stored, that you can access. It's fun to Google. It has a purpose. It's helpful, but we're not meant to live in that way of using the mind. And so Sid says, every one of you can wake up to the fact that when you're thinking, it generates tension, stress, and upset, insecurity, unhappiness. And every one of you can recognize what it's like when you're just present and not thinking. And when you're present, your mind becomes open to the universe, to the 96%. And you know what happens for human beings when their personal thinking quiets down and they become more deeply present? For no reason, this intelligence of the universe starts flowing through us, and the feeling of life energy flowing through us is a beautiful feeling. We're in the flow. And when we're in the flow, we feel better. And when we feel better, there's a deeper intelligence reveals itself in that feeling. We have more common sense. when people are fully present and tapped into the deeper flow of life energy, and we're in this feeling of connection with life, feeling more peaceful, more and enjoying the moment more, feeling a love that has nothing to do with objects. It's just in love with life. We do better. We make better decisions. We communicate beautifully. We respond to difficulties with an inborn compassion. And is built into everyone. Now, listen, I'd been a psychologist 10 years when I heard Sid, and I was very spiritual. I was not interested in traditional psychology at all. And I would go to long meditation retreats, and I was very into prayer and meditation, and that was what I was most interested in. I was trying to help find a psychology that could help people access that more deeply, and I was having trouble finding it. A lot of trouble. And I was very conflicted because when I started thinking about it, I went into my conflicted thinking. This is complicated, difficult. There were 450 different approaches to psychology by the time I met Sid Banks, as counted up in a research study by Yale University. 450. Everyone had a different theory. And then I meet Sid, and he said, "This isn't a theory. This is what's true." I said, How can you say it's true? Because I realized it's truth. And you can too. And Dicken, you and everybody else is sitting in the middle of mental health, whether you know it or not. You could be in a mental institution and you're sitting in the middle of mental health, but for the thinking you're caught up in and think is true, you would access that perfect well-being because that's your nature. Now, my whole life with my intellect, I had imagined I don't feel good, but I could feel better. That's a concept. I don't feel good now, but I could feel better, but it's not happening now. So it's got to happen in some imaginary future. And then my question is, how do I get there? And then I would try and do things to get to that imaginary future, all of which is just made up in my head. And Sid said, you're never going to find well-being in the future. You already have it. You already are it. You already are 100%, 4% body, 96% spirit, metaphor, 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 infinite. And that the very nature of the formless spiritual energy of life is creative, aware, and loving, wise. Very essence of the universe is that. And you are that. You are intimately a part of that, the way a wave is not separate from the ocean. It's an intimate part of the ocean. Absolutely intimate. Now, listen, I had been a psychologist 10 years, and I had never heard anybody in spiritual teaching or in psychological teaching say, you have perfect well-being already. There's no technique you need to use. There's nothing you need to do. Every spiritual teacher I went to said there's 10 steps. Here's the practice. Here's what you have to do every day. Here's what you have to work on. It's going to take years of practice to evolve your spiritual nature. And Sid says it's perfectly evolved already. It's 100%. It's not broken. It's not damaged. You know what happened for me? I started crying because I recognized on some level that was true. And for the first time, I stopped waiting for the future or searching for something better. I stopped waiting for the future, searching for something better, and relaxed into the now. So how did Sid talk about this? He said every human being is connected to the divine principles of mind, consciousness, and thought. 3 different ways of talking about the 96%. And how it takes form as the 4%. And how it's all connected. Universal mind, divine mind, is the intelligence that knows how to create and operate life. We're connected to that intelligence directly, no exception. Divine consciousness. We're connected. The 96% of life is a field of awareness, consciousness, and that it's what allows human beings to be aware of creation, of what's created. Divine thought. I had never heard divine thought, even in any spiritual teaching. They talked about thought content, 4% thought. Thought is a 4%. It's form. What are you thinking? Content. And Sid says thought is this creative potential that allows us, it creates every moment of our experience via this power of thought, divine thought. Sometimes he'd say God thought, God consciousness, God mind, to try and point toward the whole picture, the 100% of life, not just only talk about the 4%. So my question to people is, where do you spend your time looking, and what are you thinking about most of the time? And for most of us, I know for me, I was looking at the world of form and thinking about it. I was looking at the 4% and thinking about it constantly. I'd see my wife, she'd be feeling something, doing something. I'd think about that. And the more I got into my thinking about the form of life, the more caught up I got in the limitation of my own 4%, my personal world, my ego. And the beautiful thing is, Sid says, when you get over involved in the 4%, the intelligence of life itself gives you a friendly reminder. What is that friendly reminder? Tension, stress, and upset. It's an alarm clock going off to let you know you're wedded to your personal thinking, and you've forgotten about the wisdom field, the love field, the heart of the universe, of life, of your being, of your very being, deep within your soul, within your consciousness. You've forgotten about that. Wake up. So tension, stress, and upset stopped being about my wife or about my situation. It became a wake-up call to fall into this space where I'm not holding a single thought in mind. It's called the present moment. It's called the now. It's called pure thought. Pure thought, where you don't hold any concept. You're at the source of thought, where new and fresh are created, where you're never stuck with what you're experiencing. Pure thought, pure consciousness. Sid called pure consciousness awareness free of contamination of our conceptual mind. Unfiltered, uncontaminated by negative concepts and ideas. I should, I have to, you're this, you're that, this is no good, full of judgments. You fall out of thought, you fall out of judgment, you fall out of should, you fall out of expectations, you fall out of labels, you fall out of limiting thoughts. Where do you land? In what's always here, presence. Presence, which Sid called our soul, which is where the divine and the personal meet, the doorway to the divine. Because in presence, divine mind brings us love and understanding naturally. So the metaphor for this, it's been around for centuries in every culture. is you get caught up in your thought storms that create tension, stress, and upset. And then you wake up into the now, which is the blue sky of consciousness, of presence. And when you're in the blue sky, you suddenly can feel the light, the divine light, the spark within, the light within, pure consciousness shining through us. It's radiant. The scientists say the energy is stillness and an expansion. That's what the 96% is. And then it contracts temporarily into form, and then the forms come and go and change and go back into the formless. So it's a dance, the cosmic dance. We're part of the cosmic dance. Our very nature is love. Our very nature is oneness. So now let me bring it down to earth quickly, and then we can take it where we want. But for the first time ever, my feelings of insecurity, tension, and stress were not a problem. They were an invitation, a remembrance, an opportunity to let go of, fall out of. Sid says, if you really see thought, it'll bring you back to the now. It'll throw you off. Why would I hold on to thinking if that keeps me upset, keeps me anxious, keeps me depressed, why would I hold on to that thinking? And you discover over and over again the beauty of surrender. The beauty of surrender. The intellect is about finding and holding. Wisdom is about releasing, surrendering into something greater that's uplifting, that's wise, that's knowing, that will guide you. So I started seeing wisdom living us without my knowing it. I started seeing that when I got in the car to drive, I couldn't keep thinking or I would have accidents, so I had to become more present. And when I became more present, I started realizing my hands are continually moving as I'm driving really fast down the road past other people driving really fast past me. And I'm making life and death decisions without using my intellect, without thinking about it. And I started, we're being lived all the time, constantly being lived. I started seeing when I was in family crises and difficult situations that when I was in my thinking, it seemed very complicated and conflicted. And when I would wake up out of that thinking into the now, no matter what I was feeling, when I would wake up back into the now, Sid would say, we're a thought away from what we're looking for, and openness to divine presence and wisdom and love. And then, without thinking about it, I would have more common sense. I would be kinder. I would not say something ugly I was about to say. I would know when to stay in a room and when to leave, when to speak and when not to leave. And I didn't have to figure any of that out. It's built into this intelligence. So here's a quote from Sid. This is what an opportunity to hear someone who so deeply knew of our wholeness, reminding us of what we already are in truth. He'd say, you have to go beyond all concepts, and you'll find it in the stillness of your mind, in the quiet chambers of your mind, when you go from the known to the unknown, from the physical to the spiritual. When you hear beyond the word, an inner light goes on and it brings out inner knowledge and wisdom. Spiritual intelligence before the contamination See, pure, contaminated. Sid used those all the time. Concepts contaminate. We fall out of concepts. Blue sky, pure. Pure is love. Pure thought is love. Pure consciousness is love. Pure mind is love. Before the contamination of human thought, be grateful for the spiritual wisdom you have found that has changed your life. It's that intelligence that's our whole life trying to guide us toward well-being and love and service and beyond ego. Then he says, it's a feeling. You're looking for a feeling. Don't listen to the words. Look for a feeling. So I've traveled the world, and it doesn't matter who the person is, what their sex is, what their age is, what their culture is, what their beliefs are. Every human being can experience falling out of their ideas and beliefs into the now. And every human being, instead of at that point looking out toward the 4% form, can be aware of the space that you're in when you're not holding any thought, when you're in the state of no thought. You can be aware of what's here when you let go of everything, what's still here. And I say, let a word come to describe that space. And they say space, they say presence, they say openness, they say peace, they say vast. No words can explain it or capture it, but they can point toward that experience. And I say, now be aware of the feeling when you're fully present and in that space. Listen for that feeling, look for that feeling. Peace, joy, love, our nature. Our nature. So Sid would say, it's all thought. Wake up, rest, and listen for a feeling. Listen for a feeling rising up in you. And let that feeling guide you through life. It's a universal message. I go anywhere in the world and say, you think, you can be aware of that fact. You can be aware of the fact you're connected to a deeper intelligence. You think, you're aware, you're connected to a deeper, deeper wisdom, intelligence. You are already part of that universe, that divine spiritual universe. You already are at one with that. So what I started discovering, when my mind got quiet, I felt closer to my wife no matter what was happening. Closer to my grandkids, closer to my kids, closer to my clients. When I got back uptight in my thinking, holding on to my thinking, I didn't feel so close. I wasn't experiencing connection. And when I fell out, I began to experience more of the truth of life, is that we're all intimately part of the same ocean of wise, loving, creative consciousness. One God, one love, one truth. Not a personal truth, not an idea and a belief that can come and go and change and be argued. Not that truth. The truth of what's already true, what's always true, what's always here. My son got hit by a car. I got a call from the police. Your son's been hit. I said, is he still alive? They said, sorry, sir, we can't tell you. I assumed they couldn't tell me because they didn't want to tell me because he was dead. So I had the experience of losing my son at 9 when he was 9 years old. I had been about a year and a half into learning these principles that Sid taught. And I go running out of my office, and I didn't have a car, and I didn't know how I was going to get to the hospital. They said they were taking him to the hospital. And I saw a friend, and I said, Ben's been hit. Can you take me to the hospital? And we ran to his car, and we're there. And I have never felt such fear and dread and worry and upset. And I'm having conversations with my friends at his funeral already. And then I realized I was thinking up a storm. And suddenly I just lay back against the seat on the drive to the hospital and just let that whole fantasy movie that I was creating go. So that by the time I got to the hospital, I was much calmer. I actually beat my son to the hospital. They brought him in in an ambulance and wheeled him in, and I go running over to him, and I'm holding his hand, and I can see he's still alive. So I'm feeling this enormous relief. And I'm saying, Ben, I love you. I love you, buddy. It's going to be okay. I'm right here. He's unconscious. I'm talking to his soul, and I know he's hearing me. And they take him in, and I'm in the emergency room watching him do what you see happen in hospital shows, where the whole team is working on him and ripping his clothes off and incubating him and trying to keep him alive. And then they take him up to the crisis care. And after things settled down, they had two big, comfortable chairs in the room. And because of what we had been learning from Sid Banks, you'll find truth in a quiet mind and a beautiful feeling. Both my wife and I sat in those chairs and leaned back and just let everything go. Total surrender to God. Total surrender to God. And my wife, at one point, after we had been quiet for a long time, said, Dicken, how are you doing? And I said, Koisi, I feel like when I fall out of my thinking, I'm on a solid wall. And when I start thinking about what might happen in the future, it's like I fall off the wall on that side. And when I think about what happened to him and how he was hit, it's like I fall off the other wall. And when I'm dropped out of my thinking, it feels like I'm on solid ground. And my wife says, I understand that. And we both got quiet. And now remember, I said, when any human being falls out of thought that's creating their insecurity or fear or tension, there's calmer, quieter place underneath our thinking all the time. And when she fell into that space where wisdom, divine wisdom took her, she sees my son in so much pain and unconscious, and they couldn't give him painkillers because he had had a severe concussion along with the broken hip. It occurs to her to sing the lullabies to him that she sang to him when he was a baby. And I'm sitting there watching the monitor over my son's bed, and it had a graph showing his breathing, and it was going up and down and very shallow and very fast. And it showed a number for his heart rate, and it was 113. So it was like a little rabbit. And she starts singing the lullaby to him, and suddenly the breathing chart goes very slow and deep. And the heartbeat number drops down from 113 to 69 and stays there the whole time she's singing. She stops singing, and his breathing gets fast again, and his heartbeat goes up. And with tears in my eyes, I go over to Coisy, and we're holding his hands on each side of the bed. And I said, we're going to sing. And we sang for 3 hours. And it kept him in this quieter healing place, because it's in the quiet mind that healing happens on all levels, physical, psychological, spiritual, all levels. The doctor said it was a miracle. They'd never seen someone heal so fast. And as my daughter, who was 13, 14, she's in the waiting room, and she had picked up on these principles, and she's dropping into this calm, heartfelt center and calming down our friends who are coming in, just despairing and crying. And she, in her quiet, gets an idea. She said, I think I should go home and get all of Ben's favorite posters from his room and put them up in the hospital room. And I think Coisy goes, I'm going to bring all his old stuffed animals and put them on the bed with him. This is how wisdom works. It brings you what you need in ways you can't even imagine. All right? I go, I'm going to put all the cards we're getting, get well cards, put them up on the wall right next to them. All right? And we got flowers, and we filled the room with flowers, and we got gifts and food, and we put those under you walk down the hall, and these hospital rooms are so sterile, and you come to my son's room, and there were balloons on the ceiling. It looked like Christmas time. And the love in that room was so deep that the doctors and nurses started coming in on their off shift and say, I don't know why, I was going out to my car and I suddenly just felt like coming back and seeing how Ben was doing. And that kept happening. It kept happening. Doing webinars for people in Ukraine who are witnessing horrors beyond imagination, and they're beginning to discover that there's a peace that passes intellectual understanding. And being eternally grateful for hearing about these principles. And discovering that they can, I loved Harry in the beginning. He said, you learn that God is your partner. That's what you learn to rely on. Instead of trying to rely completely on your computer, you rely on this divine wisdom, this divine knowing that comes out of this deeper feeling. So that when you have difficulty, you run toward that which you can rely on. You run toward the unknown, toward the spiritual, toward presence, toward the quiet, toward awareness, toward feeling. And there you'll find your answers.
And it becomes the norm rather than the exception.
It becomes an absolute way of life. And some people are already living that way, as you said, Harry, and it's very inspirational. And this piece about thought can really help people make that connection to thought, to the divine. And then it helps with their psychological well-being as well. Well,
that's wow, that's beautiful, Dicken. Thank you. Thank you for you shared. There is a quote from Sadie Banks that really touched me in ways that I never imagined. And I would love to share it with you, as you spoke at the beginning about the 4% about that we focus on the form, we forget about the 96%. Sidney Banks once said that mind, thoughts, and consciousness are the missing link that psychology has been looking for, and is the essence of all psychological experiences. They are the trio that will lead psychology and psychiatry into a renaissance and liquidate, oh, that word, liquidate most of what is practiced today, leading to the healing of millions of people who are suffering needlessly. Liquidating the 4%.
Yeah.
You know, falling out of what's temporary or
Yeah.
what is not true, and staying with truth and in truth.
Liquidating. It's like ego is a cold ice cube, and the discovery of truth brings so much warmth that it liquidates that ego, and then we're in the flow for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the process of truth.
Yeah.
We have a question from Yai, if you wouldn't mind, Dicken.
Sure. Yeah, I'll be glad to.
Yeah.
Hi, greetings of peace,
Hi.
everyone.
Hi,
Dickens, first off, Omar. I think you have such a soothing voice. I don't know if that's a fact or my personal, separate realities, but you have such a soothing voice. And I love that you're a psychologist, and then that you're sharing this beautiful work around the world. And, to me, my question is one of that I feel like you can't answer, but I'm going to ask you anyways.
Yeah.
How do you believe that psychology can and will embrace this understanding?
It's inevitable. When Galileo said, I have proof now that the Earth isn't the center of the solar system, no one believed him. Everybody fought. Everybody thought it was heresy. They would kill people who would make that claim. You can't stop truth when it comes into the world. It's not a new theory that's coming into the world. It's a reminder that we are part of something greater, and that's true. It's always been true. There have been people in every culture that have confirmed that. It's being confirmed more and more in everywhere in the world. This is spreading. When I first learned this, Harry can tell you, we knew the people who came to the conference were the same 75 people, 100 people. We knew everybody that was interested in learning these principles. And boy, is it spread now. Boy, is it, there are people everywhere in the world, in all countries, that are talking about the connection between the 4% and the 96%, and truth is the 100%. Our true self embraces all of it. It's not like our true self is only the 96%. That's the essence of our self. True self is all of it. Sid would say you have to go beyond the duality of our thinking and see in the singular. It's all one. So it's, in my mind, there will be great resistance. There has been great resistance in the field of psychology and psychiatry because it's the opposite of what people have been taught. I had to let go of everything I had learned and start over. Not everybody is willing to do that or wanting to do that or seeing a need to do that. But more and more, we're seeing in the world the limitations of an ego-based societies that inevitably lead to war and conflict. And there are more and more people, like people here, who are interested in shifting from an ego-based life to a wisdom-based life. And going into communities to help create wisdom-based communities that can solve the apparently seemingly insolvable problems of the world. Work together collaboratively. You get a room full of people getting quiet and reflective and tapping into that creativity. You can solve anything. I've seen it many, many times. I've helped facilitate communities so that they learn how to look in that direction for answers rather than wedded to beliefs and arguing the whole meeting. That's the old approach. Come in strong and heated with your belief. I'm right. I got to prove to you I'm right. Rather than, I wonder what we can discover together that will be good for everybody, not just for me. I'm very, very interested in that mission to help move the world from ego-based world to a wisdom-based world so that we can work together. We can see our sameness and recognize that sameness and help one another find answers that have seemed impossible.
And for me, it's for the, if you have awareness of the 96%, you still have to love the 4%. And if you have a love of the 4%, you have to love this 96%. And I see that is the internal conflict that we'll have.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
One of the things that I have liked teaching people is you have to love all your thoughts, not just some of them, all of them, because that's who you are. And
well, they're all just expressions of the divine, aren't they, Harry? They're just the divine takes form in all different forms, and we're the ones who label, judge, dislike, hate, desire this, don't want this. And as we fall out of our thinking, that wanting and hating and needing, and that starts to fall away. That just starts to fall away in people.
Like not having anything on our thinking. That's the thing. It's not a problem. Like I have this thought right now that I'm suffering. Like having nothing on it is something that's been really helpful. To me to come back to the present moment. But when I have something on my this particular thought that seems so compelling and real,
I know.
Oh gosh, wish me luck to come back home. But like thanks for your question. The quote that I shared from Sydney Banks, he said liquidate, and liquidate means also terminate. And terminate meaning end the it's the end of the psychology that is now practiced. Like to me, and I might be wrong, this cannot be mixed with the psychology that is now practiced. It is the birth of psychology, philosophy, our beliefs, all theories and sciences out there. It's the essence of everything else. So the three principles is really coming back to the roots of the root, to see something new. And I don't know if you're working with psychologists here or you're doing, but you're trying to share this understanding with them. But as Dicken said, it's not something to convince them with. It's inviting them to this journey to see for themselves what is true, to let them experience and see that there is no need to fix or apply something to heal our mental illness. It's really coming back to the space where healing happens naturally. That's how I see it now, and this space is within every human soul on this planet. No exceptions to that. No exception.
Iraji
Yeah,
has,
no exception.
oh, Iraji left. Yeah, I guess oh, there he is.
No, he's still here.
Iraji is from Naka Valley. He teaches about 100 kids in his 3,000 village, and then he bikes an hour and a half to an orphanage with 200 kids and teaches them the 3 principles. And so from just teaching him individually, he is what you call a natural sharer of truth and a lover of the principle. Raji, you have a question you mentioned to me, I didn't quite get it, but could you maybe ask Dicken the question?
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It is Iragi Bakenga Leon from Uganda, Nakivale Refugees Camp. Yes, I'm the student of Harry. I do share together with him the love and the understandings of 3P. Nice to meet everyone again. It's nice really to be among these. I had some questions. I had just 4 questions to ask Mr. Dicken. I would like him to help me with this. Yeah, the first one is, what are the different methods used to access psychological attributes?
I want to make sure I understand the question. What are the different metaphors?
What are the different methods used to access psychological attributes? The different methods used to access psychological attributes.
To access psychological attributes. Metaphors or metrics?
Methods.
Methods? What are the different methods for accessing? Well, what I like about this is that every human being in the world is built to have insights. And trying to use a metaphor is a strategy that the intellect uses. And when people quiet down and listen to the principles, I see this constant all day long. People have insights that help them have a better understanding about life and how we work. And so Sid would say, don't look for a technique or a method, just listen. Listen to truth. Listen to people pointing toward truth. Just listen. And at some point you have an insight that helps you do better. For example, when I first started listening to Sid, I had an insight that it was normal to have moods instead of a problem. And I started seeing that when I'm in a good mood, that just means I'm not holding on to my thinking. And when I'm caught up in my thinking, I drop into a lower mood. And then it hit me, if I parent when I'm in a good feeling rather than not in a good feeling, I could become a phenomenal parent no matter how I was parented. That was an insight. That was a shift. And I went back and suddenly parenting became fun and easy. And I stopped complaining to my kids when I was bothered, upset, frustrated by what I was feeling about what they were doing. And I started going, oh, I'm just in a low mood, big deal. I'll wait a little bit, let my head clear. I'll come back up again, and then I'll go deal with this, or then I'll talk to them about this. And it made my parenting. I became a high mood parent rather than a low mood parent. And guess which parent my kids liked best? So it's just an example of how insight and understanding is part of this new way of looking at psychology rather than trying, efforting methods, techniques. And it's such a relief because the only thing I knew in psychology before was tell me what to do and I'll do it. Give me a technique and I'll do it. And Sid would say, if you listen to truth, your mind will get quieter and you'll discover you already have the answers inside you that you're looking for. You'll find the love, the peace, the insights, inspiration, motivation, aspirations, clarity, perspective, common sense, new and fresh thinking, creativity. He says everything you're looking for is found in that 96%. You know how I talk about it now? I say to my clients, everybody has a drop-in center and it's open 24/7 and there's no bouncer at the door. As a matter of fact, there's no door. And when you enter this drop-in center, when you fall out of your thinking into this spiritual center or soul, there's all kinds of refreshments. You know what Sid called that? Being nourished by your soul. Being nourished by your soul. So when I learned that I could go to this drop-in center and be nourished by my soul and then bring that feeling to other people and give it away. So Sid would say, look within, go beyond your thinking to a quiet. There's a feeling and a knowing that you can literally bring more love and understanding into the world and give it away for free, unconditionally, no charge. And you'll be living the simplest, most beautiful life ever. So Raji, I hope that was helpful. It's really learning the power of the capacity everybody has for insight, no matter what age and what culture. And you just share your story and what you've learned that helped you and what you know about anything you've learned about the principles. You share that with other people. And at some point you'll see people are just without a method or technique, they're shifting and changing before your very eyes.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Oh, good. It's so good to see you. Thank you for coming and for what you're doing. It sounds wonderful,
Nice.
what Harry is describing.
Thank you, Iraqi. James, you got your hands up.
Thank you.
Yes, I do, Omar.
Yeah.
I want to shine my light on what I'm seeing on this
Please.
Oh,
webinar
please do.
right now. You know, it's Sid's 50th anniversary from the experience that he had. And I honestly, this is one of the most beautiful tributes to Sydney Banks that I could conceive of. This beautiful Tawhid website, the incredible work that Omar and Harry have done on this site. I've been attending many of them in the last 2 years, and they're always expanding the sphere of influence on the three principles into areas that seem to not have been noticed previously. And by that, I mean particularly the Muslim community, the connection between the Jewish community and the Muslim community, and now the African community. And Dicken, this has been a magnificent sharing. It's been an incredible privilege to be on the screen with these, 2, 4, 7 other folk. We are the privileged ones. We're the chosen ones right now. We're in the middle of this incredible light of truth. And Dicken, you're the one that's really got it turned on. And I am learning so much and have learned so much from the sharing that you've done today. It's epic. It's epic. Thank you so much. Gratitude to everyone in the room. Gratitude out to everyone on Facebook that's watching now. Gratitude to everyone who dials this in to share it in the future. It's a magnificent opportunity. Thanks so much. Thanks so much.
Beautiful.
Thank you,
you.
James.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Wow, beautiful.
Thank you for your kind words. Yeah, this is a beautiful tribute to the 50th anniversary of Cindy Banks' enlightenment experience, and it's just magnificent. I just recorded. I'm doing a podcast with Dr. Keith Levins called "The Essence of Change," and we just recorded a podcast to pay tribute to, to the 50th anniversary of Sydney Banks' and enlightenment experience, and the title of that is "The Beginning of a New World." This is a tipping point where hopefully we're gonna see more of what I said at the beginning about living in a world where people are born into this understanding and being really connected to who they truly are, being that 96% that you've talked about, Dicken, and also living in the 4%, but knowing that the 96% is also there.
Yeah.
Kind of helpful, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. I guess the 96%, like we will live in it when after we die, after we we are not part of this form. So that's why we are having a human experience, to enjoy that 4%, knowing that it's like we're playing with the casino's money. We are not losing anything. We are having this human experience in this game of life, and we have nothing to lose, really. And
one of the things, Omar, I saw was what Sid had his two-pronged, what I call a two-pronged approach to enlightenment. When he saw the first experience of all insecurity is just thought, he handled the 4%. And then when he went 2 days or 3 days later and walked through the light, and as Dickens says, right through to the other side, he saw the other 96%. I never really thought of it that way, but you could see the connection, the oneness, because you could see that he wouldn't have been able to walk through the 96% if the 4% was disturbing him, or he didn't have a pure understanding of that. And that's what I've really gotten from our talk, Dicken, is a stronger understanding of the connection of those two as one. And how one, even though it's only 4%, it can really take us away from what we call love.
Yeah, it's really tricky, isn't it, Harry? It seems like it's the whole picture, but we are actually just seeing a fraction of it, not seeing what's underneath it, or the roots of it.
Yeah.
Well, well, that was beautiful. I think we reached the end of this, beautiful conversation. Harry, do you want to add anything else? I know this is your last show, so we could make it 3 hours, as long as Dicken is free and ready to have a party with us.
Well, just that when you listen to Dicken, because we've had him on the last show of each season, and what I noticed today is how much clearer he is in his simplicity of his understanding, how much clearer. And that's really the product of what the three principles are. We want to grow to become a better human being, and have a deeper understanding of our relationship to God. And so Dicken, I as a model, I can honestly tell you I've seen great growth in what you have. And I know part of it is because you share so much, so freely, but another part of it is you're just lucky that you're getting that personal mind. Like that's what I a point in my life, it seemed like the 4%, I knew about the 96%. I certainly experienced the 96%, but the 4% I had a lot of personal opinion about. That's the way I describe it. A lot of personal opinion about it. And then at a certain point, I'd go a little more here. And then at a certain point, I became less interested in my personal opinion and just let the other happen. And it seemed like the more I wasn't paying attention to the 4%, the 96% exploded. Like it didn't even, it was just in, out, in, out, in, out. And then at a certain point, might as well just stay in. And so, and then all of a sudden you're attracting these beautiful people like Arashi, who has a heart of gold, and he just picks up the feeling. He picks up the feeling, and you go, oh. And of course, it's inspiring. And I think you've been inspired quite a bit by watching other people grow and share. So, yeah. And that's the truth, people. If you want to grow, you share. That's a golden rule. So this as my last show, I want to say thank you to, especially to Omar, but to everybody. Thank you so much. 3 years of great fun. Not fun, great fun.
You're gonna be missed, Harry.
Well, I'll be around. I'm a noisy guy. So I'll be around. I'll be around for sure.
Yeah, don't forget to come and share your jokes from time to time.
Yeah, I will.
Harry.
Will for sure. And I want to say one last thing. Omar is Muslim and I'm Jewish. Not once was that ever even talked about. We just soul to soul. Who cares? Love, different forms. And Dick and I have been so enriched by being exposed to the Muslim world. I could honestly.
I can tell.
So, and it's all because of you, Omar. You opened the door for me in my heart. And so I saw the beauty of religion. I hated religion. Saw the beauty of religion through the faith. And it was helped, Dick, because I knew zero about it. Like images of it. And it's quite different. And working with Yai. Yai also works in Naka Valley with the teachers in the school type of thing. The love of these women. You know, we have this image of these Muslim women suppressed. When you listen to Yai, it's not too suppressed. You know, it's quite expressive. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. But the spirit, the love of God, what I call, I now use the word, is just so beautiful. So thank you, everyone. And thank you so much, Dicken, for coming to this last show of the season. A real beautiful share. And what a topic. What a topic. What a topic to finish this season. And thanks, Marty and Jim, for showing as well. Really appreciate you being here. Really a lot. It means a lot to.
It's a privilege, Harry.
Yeah. Thanks
a
Jim.
lot, everyone. It's been a pleasure. Harry, thank you. Thank you again for all you've done.
Awesome job. Awesome.
To the Muslim community, I mean, you've been of help to not only Muslim, but all, individuals from different walks of life. So yeah, thank you for what you did to make this show worth listening to, and helping many people. And I'm happy that you are pursuing something bigger and amazing. That we don't see we don't see much within the community. Hopefully we're going to see more of that in the 3P community. So yeah, big love, everyone.